We have our continuation on the budget hearing for Kansas Department of Health and Environment. And today, as you know, we're going to make committee recommendations to the governor's budget recommendations. So I would open it up. Are there recommendations? Representative Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to start by thanking Megan for this organizing 2 pages.
I would second that.
But I'm all in favor. Oh, you're the you're the chair. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. But I'm going to take us off that document back to the governor's budget. There's a line item for laboratory courier services, page 14. It's number 4. It's explained on page 15, number 4, and then you'll see on page 19 and under 32, it was not recommended for funding by the governor. The reason I'm suggesting this, the reasons are threefold. I think it's a shift of cost to local entities, and we certainly pay taxes in Western Kansas, so we'd appreciate the benefit of courier service. Number 2, I think the state is in a position to see all of the flow of laboratory specimens from the different public health departments and or hospitals in certain cases. And so there's an opportunity for the state to economize rather than 100 of us sending one courier with one sample. And being a physician, I know how important timely arrival of samples is to accurate testing. The third thing is we're dedicating a lot of money, and you'll see that back on that first page, to the new laboratory. And I think there's potential for confusion as to where these samples will even go as the laboratory is transitioning to the new lab. And I would think that a centralized courier service paid by the state would be appropriate. So I'd like to recommend we add back the 1.1 million. Roughly, I could give you the exact number if you'd like, for the courier services, all state general fund.
Yes, $1,072,309, right?
That is correct.
All right. You've heard the motion by Representative Clifford. Is there a second? Representative Ballard seconds. Committee discussion. Representative Droege.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is personal vehicle courier the only way to do this? When I was in practice, I mailed a lot of stuff. So if it needed to be overnight, it went overnight mailed. Does it all have to be personally delivered?
Representative Clifford.
I would say not everything needs to be personally delivered, but some things require special handling, or the sample arrives and it's no good, and then we've lost the opportunity to treat a patient. So I think hand delivered is appropriate in some cases.
Representative Droege.
I can agree with your hand delivery in some cases. I also dealt with a lot of fragile samples, and we had to learn how to properly prepare them for shipment. I'm thinking about vehicles and time down the road and the cost, and is it really going to be that much faster? I don't know. From Western Kansas, you live out there, and I'm just asking questions. You would have a better idea of it.
Representative Clifford.
Actually, our mail goes to either Wichita or Amarillo, so that is not direct. Even UPS has several flights before it actually would end up in Topeka, like to Wichita, then to Kansas City, then back to Topeka. So delivery tends to be circuitous of about everything out there.
Representative Droege.
I can certainly understand that, and like you say, Amarillo, I have dealt with some samples in Western Kansas that Amarillo was much closer and much more expedient. But if we're going to centralize it all in Topeka, I just have a curiosity or a concern that the delivery system is going to, $1.5 million. I just have some questions about whether there's other ways to move it expeditiously. Thank you.
Representative Clifford.
I appreciate the representative's concerns.
Representative Blake Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Was there a reason given, and maybe you don't know this, Representative, but just I'm trying to figure out what the reason is for the governor not recommending adoption of the agency's request?
Let's check with staff if there's a recollection. No recollection.
It's on page 23, item 4 at the bottom.
If I may, Mr. Chair. So that looks like the agency's reasoning for wanting the courier service, but not the governor's. So she did not provide, from what we can recall, an explanation for removing this.
Not that I can recall.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee, other discussion on the Clifford amendment? Seeing none, those in favor of the Clifford amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. Committee, other recommendations? Representative Ballard.
Thank you, and I thank the committee very much for waiting for me. Appreciate it. I would like to move that we approve the oral health program for 1.9, and that would generate 4.87 million in all funds.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion by Representative Ballard for 1.9 million SGF, 4.8 million all funds for Oral Health Kansas. Second by Representative Clifford. Discussion, committee. Representative Clifford.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not a dentist, but as a physician, I know how important appropriate dental care is to a person's general health. I mean, diabetics suffer greatly when they have poor dentition. I could go on and on about diseases that are more complex because of poor dental care. I know the uptake previously was modest, 4%, but I think if we can bring this money to bear and get the word out, I think we can improve the dental health of many in the community.
Representative Ballard.
One of the reasons is that, you know, dental care, especially for older adults, is not really covered. And they're probably the population most in need. But I think this would cover your dental exams, x-rays, cleanings for adults in the Kansas Medicaid program. I think that's the difference between quality of life. And it also would include fillings and crowns and any kind of periodontal gum disease concern. And I think we have done a little bit, but nearly not enough for this population of people. And I think it's a wise investment of our funds, or you'll end up with other kinds of medical issues that you have to follow. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very well. Committee, other discussion? Seeing none, those in favor of the Ballard amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, motion carries. Oh, excellent point. I need to clarify that was for fiscal year 25, correct? Yes. All right with us.
Similarly, yes, I move my motion.
Yes, and that's a good reminder that we do need to be specific on the years that we're talking about. Okay, other recommendations. Representative Ruiz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we approve the Infant Toddler Services of Johnson County, the Tiny K program. Their ask was for 2 million SGF. This is for FY 2025. I think I don't think I know that this is a program that is very much needed across the state, and to be able to enhance those services so they can serve more children. They are not allowed to, it's required by law, they cannot turn away a child who is eligible for services. And I think one of the other great things about the program is that they support the entire family and not just the child. So I think this is, really good prevention kind of services. And the child will be able to do so much better as when they're receiving services this early in their life.
We have a motion by Representative Ruiz for a $2 million enhancement SGF for fiscal year '25 for infant and toddler service. Representative Ballard seconds. Committee discussion. Representative Barth.
Thank you, Chairman Mason and committee. On this one here, I don't understand why we would approve this. I really think the Tiny K program is actually a really good program. The one thing I made note of that stood out to me big time when they talked was that there's no wait list already. So they're already serving, it seems like, everyone. I know they had an increase, but there's no wait list, and they're already serving the kids. I didn't see there being a need for it. Thank you.
Representative Ruiz.
Yes, this program is running well enough that they don't have a wait list. They have 45 days to provide services. But one of the things that they spoke about is all the added services that they are doing that there's really no true reimbursement for. For instance, their translation services. It costs them $1,200 just to have one document translated, and that document has to be translated every 6 months. And that was just for one family, and there are many, many more families out there that will need documents translated. So that, I just think they've got some added cost here that this money will go far.
Committee, other discussion? Representative Droege.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don't they already have 14 million in the budget? This is just 2 million added to the 14?
I believe that's correct.
Thank you.
Committee, other discussion? Seeing none, those in favor of the Ruiz amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Chair is in doubt. Those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Committee, other recommendations? Representative Ballard.
Up in 92, we've been doing any kind of increase. And so the last 2 years, we've given a little bit. But the health departments is also our safety net and also our homeland security around the state. And if there's any kind of real problem breaks out, they're responsible for doing it as well. And this is still playing catch up because they went almost 18 years without any kind of raise. And it's kind of shame on us in many ways to have gone that long, but they're asking for $493, and that's statewide, and it will be shared with all of their health departments around the states.
Question about which question for budget item? Sorry.
Oh, so I have to look on the budget item. See, I did mine from my sheet from home. So
It's number 6, by the way.
As Johnson County Department of Health and Environment, Kansas Association of Local Health Departments, which is statewide.
Committee, we have a motion from Representative Ballard, $843,493 SGF to be distributed to local health departments. Is there a second? Representative Hobison. Discussion, committee. Any discussion? Seeing none. Those in favor of the Ballard amendment signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion passes. Other recommendations, committee? Representative Carpenter, Will Carpenter.
Make sure you get that straight. For Blake's sake.
For Blake's sake.
Okay. My first amendment is Social Services Budget Committee recommends the House Appropriations Committee consider addition of 12 million SGF to expand the services offered by Workforce Solutions to assist in benefit eligibility determinations and verifications for 2025.
Was this one of the requests yesterday?
Is this the Medicaid one?
It was the request from Equifax.
Equifax.
Okay. Representative Will Carpenter, would you repeat and explain?
Yeah.
No, I don't have that one.
Representative Blake Carpenter. You're seconding? Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second by Representative Blake Carpenter. The motion was made by Representative Will Carpenter. And this is 12 million SGF to expand the services, Workforce Solutions. And basically that is the real-time verification by Equifax. Am I correct in saying that? Do you want to explain that a little more to the committee?
I'm kind of in a difficult position, but I think there's going to be more information available in the future about making this decision that we can't make at this point in time. And that's kind of all I can say about that. So in the interest of buying time and not making this recommendation now, I'm kicking it off to the Appropriations Committee when the information will become available that makes this very clear why I'm doing it.
So this would serve more or less as a placeholder in the budget?
It will.
Okay, very good. I understand that, and yes, Representative
Just a
Ballard.
clarification, since our job is, as you know, to explain this one. But, okay, it's 12 million, but we also had a request for like the Medicaid fee schedule. You know, and part of that is in order to, we passed 5% last year, but the conference reduced it to 3%. And that was like, I think, 12.8, but.
Now, that has nothing,
Totally different.
absolutely nothing to do with this.
Totally different. I just wanted to make sure.
This is just a placeholder to allow the Appropriations Committee to take a look at this when the information that I can't discuss is available.
I'll buy that. It's okay.
Yeah, this is regarding that Equifax, that real-time employment verification, those things. Representative Ruiz.
I'm confused because it sounded like yesterday in this testimony that Equifax was wanting to provide extra services that isn't being asked for right now, and it isn't being used. And I get the placeholder thing, but why can't the appropriations just do that on their own without us having to say yes to this?
Representative Blake Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that when appropriations is inundated with all these budgets and everything else, when they're looking through these documents, you know, it's just, hey, we looked at this, we considered it, but we wanted you guys to also look at this and consider it. So I think by putting this in here as a placeholder makes it to where, hey, we think you should look more into this when hopefully more information is available to you folks, depending on if KDH&E has time to come in and talk to them, or whatever those other extenuating factors are. So I think by biding this time and just when you guys go to report this budget out, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and it lists what what we did as a committee. Just having that little nugget there that says, hey, pull on this string and let's see where the conversation goes.
Representative Ruiz.
It kind of sounds like the opposite thing. Sounds like the legislature is trying to impose this on KDHE and DCF.
I don't get that impression. I think in the meantime, there are agreements being made as to whether this can be effectively utilized, and we'll know more in weeks to come. I think it's important to get this placeholder in there so that we don't have to spring it like an omnibus or in conference committee, something like that. It's something that the committee has discussed, and we can take action on that later. That's the chair's position anyway. Committee, other discussion? Seeing none, you read the amendment by Representative Will Carpenter. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay. Motion passes. Committee, other discussion? Other recommendations? Representative Carpenter, Will Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yesterday we had a presentation by on PACE from Sean Sullivan. And so my recommendation is a budget proviso for hospice. Insert in a budget proviso in the for KDHE to work with hospice and nursing home stakeholders to identify and implement a new payment aids and systems consistent with the federal requirements and submit to CMS as necessary by September of 2024.
Okay, you've heard the motion by Representative Carpenter. Is there a second? Yes. Representative Ballard. Yeah.
Comment on that. I mean, there's no money right now.
Right.
That goes with that. But that's an area when you start talking about hospice that we know it's needed, I would say, in many ways. And do we have any idea what that amount might be?
I do not. And this is just a study. This is just a look at it.
Oh, so, just to look at it.
Yeah, this is not a financial deal. It's just a budget proviso that KDHE will look at this. So there's no fiscal note whatsoever here. I believe we need more information on this subject.
Representative Ruiz.
Mr. Chair, is this to eliminate that, hopefully to eliminate that 5% rate, that gap?
It's
Representative Carpenter.
Yes, it's in response to that, the 5%.
Am
You in favor of that? Okay.
Okay, it would be in your packet then, I guess.
It's in the packet. It's not.
It may not have made it to.
Representative Carpenter.
Is it Midland Care?
Yeah, it's number 1.
Representative Carpenter, does this make that 5% right, or is this just a study that you're?
This is just a study. This has no recommendations of how much they come up with or anything. It's just to take a look at that.
Okay. So that would be how that 5% could be mitigated or eliminated.
Or it could be more. We have no idea.
Okay. All right. Very well. We have a motion from Representative Carpenter, and we have a second from Representative Ballard. Discussion on the motion. Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion on the Will Carpenter amendment? Seeing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Committee, other recommendations? Representative Ruiz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we approve funding for the Community Network of Kansas. Yesterday, we heard that they are still doing 56.5 million or thousand? Million, yes, of uncompensated care. They had a very large ask yesterday. Took our breath away. And we do know that there is 3 million in the governor's budget now, and so they had asked for a lot more. And I would like to recommend an additional, not what they were asking, not the 20 million that was being asked, but to ask for an addition to the 3 million that the governor's already giving is to add another 3 million.
Another 3, so it would be a total of 6.
Of 6, yes, be a total of 6 million.
Representative Ballard seconds that. Committee discussion?
Oh,
Representative
sorry,
Barth.
sorry, number 5.
Committee discussion?
Yeah.
Representative Ballard.
I would just comment on that one that, that we're talking about a population of serving that's uninsured. And many of that is not, it's uncompensated for. It's what that's what you do along those lines. And last year, I think we appropriated 5, and then the conference committee reduced it to 3.
Correct.
And along those lines. So we knew then it was a worthy project, and it's healthcare areas all over the state, which is what we really need. And I would go with the 3. The 20 did take my breath away. But I think they kind of knew there's no way we could do 20, because then we couldn't do a lot of other things that people want, or one-time funds as well. But I could support 3.
Representative Barth.
Thank you, Chairman Mason. I'm okay with the original budget that was included by the governor, but not for the increase. Thank you.
Committee, other discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion by Representative Ruiz to augment the governor's budget recommendation by an additional 3 million, making it a total of 6. Seconded by Representative Ballard. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. May I have a show of hands? Aye. No. Okay. Motion passes. Okay, committee, other recommendations? Yeah. Well, that wasn't what I was asking, but other recommendations?
Somebody was asking me if
Committee, other recommendations? Representative Will Carpenter.
Okay. I would recommend 1.8 million, including 700,000 SGF to increase the Medicaid rate for family service coordination, T 1017, and family training counseling, T 1027 to 1875 a unit. If you remember the testimony from yesterday, this was rainbows. They were unintentionally left out of the targeted case management that we increased last year. And this is to get them on with the targeted case management like they should have been. So this would be for family service coordinators out there.
For fiscal year 25.
Yes.
Committee, do we have a second for that? Representative Barth seconds. Committee, discussion? Number 7. Okay. Yes, and Representative Will Carpenter is correct. Last year, as you know, we made an enhancement to the targeted case management, and that was inadvertently overlooked. It's similar function. So any other discussion, committee? Okay. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Committee, other recommendations, Representative Will Carpenter.
I would recommend adding 3.8 million, including 1.5 million SGF to increase the Medicaid reimbursement for applied behavioral analysis to $65 an hour from $47 an hour. Applied behavioral therapy or analysis is designed to help children on the autism spectrum develop social and emotional skills. These services must be in the state plan rather than part of a waiver because they're considered mental health services. These services must be available to any child that is in need of the service and not restricted to a waiver group.
Very well. The second, Representative Ballard seconds. This is number 10 on your list, committee. Discussion?
Briefly,
Representative Ballard?
I think that one is, justifiable. We have struggled for a long time in the legislature to really fund autism. And when we look at their rates, if their rates are $47, and we know our rates are low, I don't care what area it is, it seems like we are lower than almost any of our surrounding states and other states as well. And we're talking about a workforce shortage, and $65 may not be the answer, but at least it would maybe keep who we have and increase the number we have, and that they wouldn't go over to Missouri and wouldn't go to neighboring states in order to make a little more money. We need to protect our own. Thank you.
Committee, other discussion? Seeing none? You've heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion passes. Representative Ballard. I'll just write you a check. Okay, motion by Representative Ballard. We'll need a second. Representative Ruiz seconds. And as a recap, Representative Ballard, their business model is seeking out and acquiring volunteer services for all sorts of medical, dental, everything like this, yes. Okay, and they have helped a great number of people. Committee, discussion on the Ballard amendment. Seeing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Committee, other recommendations? Representative Will Carpenter.
Committee, I guess I'd like to amend my previous recommendation for the proviso Apparently, my copy of the proviso did not include the funding for that. So, thank you for that. So my recommendation would be for the budget proviso that I talked about, also $1.9 million, all funds, and $738,000 SGF to eliminate the 5% discount on any hospice. And I apologize for the confusion.
Recall who your second was on that? Are you okay with modifying that? Okay.
Thank you, and I apologize for that confusion.
So there is funding attached.
There is.
Okay. Committee discussion. Seeing none. Those in favor of allowing the motion to add the 1.9 million all funds, 738,000 SGF, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay, we'll make that change. Representative Ruiz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is more asking the committee to support this is number 15 on our testimony document. Kansas Action for Children, Child Care Aware of Kansas, Kansas Head Start, Kansas Children's Service League, Representative Monica Merman, ex-Representative Monica Merman, United Methodist Health Ministry asked that we support the retaining of the funding for digital fingerprinting devices.
Now, that is in the governor's budget, is it not?
It is at number 10.
14. Representative, I don't know that we need to take action on that since it's in the governor's budget, do we?
They were just asking that we give a support, you know, that we are supportive, that we are supportive of it.
All right.
Clifford will second.
I really don't think we need to do anything. If we pass the budget out, it's there. Yeah.
I withdraw.
Okay. Are you okay with, okay. All right. Any other amendments? Representative Will Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Buckle up. 33.9 million, including 13.6 million SGF to increase the physician's provider codes that are currently below 79.5 of Medicare rate and have no equivalent Medicare rate by 15%.
Representative, would you repeat the numbers?
It's 33.9 all funds, 13.6 SGF. I don't go off of the. I don't go off of the sheet. These are separate.
If you're looking at the scorecard, it's number 11, but the numbers have changed with the Carpenter amendment. Yes.
All right. Now that's the Medicaid fee schedule or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That was the one before. I'll second it.
Okay. Second by Representative Ballard. Committee. So we have a motion on the floor. This is Kansas Medical Society presented yesterday. They were asking for a Medicaid rate enhancement. And the motion by Representative Will Carpenter, 33.9 all funds, 13.6 million SGF.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Representative Ballard.
That's a big ask, yes. But often we'll say to a physician, or we'll ask, do you serve Medicaid? And they'll say, well, no. We know that our rates are woefully low, and not only low, but takes us forever to reimburse whoever is waiting for it. So when we look at this, I guess at some point, we're going to have to increase this if we want more people to be served, and at the same time, if we want to keep excellent physicians and others in the process. That's why I seconded it.
Representative Clifford.
Yes, I just wonder about the numbers. Yesterday, we heard about a 10% increase, creating a 36 million all funds, but did I misunderstand? 33.9 million all funds, or is it 43.9
That's 33.9.
for the 15%?
funds. So it's, what's that?
Or 15% increase. And a second question, Mr. Chairman, if I may, does this fold in the three codes asked by the American Academy of Pediatrics
It does.
It does.
to the same 15% raise?
I think the specialties are covered.
Yep, they are.
Thank you.
Barth.
Thank you, Chairman Mason. I recall the testimony yesterday. This was the one from Dan Murray, right?
Yes.
Okay. And, you know, I'm glad we were able to do something last year. And I was okay with the 10%, you know, which was the ask, really, just to get us more in line with the reimbursement rates. But I guess I'm not seeing the additional amount. Did you say there was another sheet that we're adding in there? Because we're adding something above and beyond what they're asking for, and I'm not sure I understand your why of doing that. Thanks.
Well, I think Representative Ballard hit on that. Our Medicaid rates are incredibly low. Last year, we put in a 5% increase. We got 3. This year, we're putting in a 15% increase.
Representative Barth.
I feel like I'm starting to learn how this goes now a little bit. We ask high and go low, right? I feel like, in general, what we're going to get is not that by any means, is what I think is going to happen. Just because what I've seen is, what is the word I hear on a regular basis? Too much, too fast. is the word.
Representative Carpenter.
Like that.
Representative Barth, you are entitled to your own opinions.
Let me,
That's what I'm hearing.
Representative Ballard.
maybe I can help a little bit on that. I think in our conversation, if you remembered, and you know, funniest thing about it is we usually don't give people more than what they ask. We give them less in many ways. But the last time they were working on this was 2006. I don't know how many things have stayed the same since 2006 in many ways. And Medicaid fee schedule has increased slightly, but not to the point that I believe physicians and others should have their salary be. But my main reason is that we're always saying, why don't you take more Medicaid people? Why don't you serve? And we say this all the time. Well, why don't we pay more and reimburse them in a timely manner? So when I look at that, part of it is our fault, yes. Sometimes we didn't have the money and everything else. But if we want to make progress and not just play catch up all the time, this is one way in order to do it.
Representative Blake Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wasn't here for yesterday's hearing, but I did catch a little bit, you know, on the YouTube. And at the end of the day, I think that increasing the amount by 10%, it makes sense, you know. I mean, look at inflation just over the last year alone. We're asking these doctors to take patients on for pennies on the dollar. And that's causing a lot of issues within the system. But at the end of the day, I think it makes sense for us to make this change, make this update. And I guess to a certain extent, you know, with this vote, I'm expanding Medicaid a little bit, right? So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh.
Let's say enhancing.
I will.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and I'm enhancing Medicaid, absolutely, to
You know
the
what?
current
I'll
population.
give you that effort.
All right, thank you.
At committee, other discussion on the Carpenter amendment. Representative Clifford.
Just for full disclosure, I mean, I bill the Medicaid system, so I would benefit financially from this, or patients would benefit. But I will vote on that, but I just want it known that we are a Medicaid provider and a Medicaid biller.
Representative Ruiz.
Do we know if this is going to help hospitals? It's not
No,
just the individual physician?
these are physician codes. Representative
Mr.
Clifford.
Chairman, if I might point out, and I didn't get the numbers, I'd asked for them today, many physician practices now are owned by hospitals. There are innumerable physicians who work for hospitals inside, and I could name all the professions. I still remember saying when Liberal Kansas Community Hospital bought all the physician practices, I thought that'll never happen in Garden City. And now my own practice is the only one not owned by the local hospital. So indeed, hospitals will benefit indirectly from this.
Yes, I believe these are code specific. Am I correct?
Okay,
Representative
I
Barth.
appreciate what Representative Clifford there said, so thank you for that. I know that was one of the things I think last year we looked at helping was, we did do an increase last year on the physician rates, and obviously that's what we're also looking at this year, but one of the things I didn't see in the budget this year was an increase to help the hospitals as well, because their reimbursement rates, I mean, if you look at all the different codes of what people get reimbursed on, you know, it's the physician, the facility, the anesthesia, if you have a surgery, there might be an implant, you know, et cetera, the supplies and everything. So I do think this helps that cause, and it's an indirect way to help them as well.
Well, someone might bring that. Who knows? Committee, other discussion? We have a motion on the floor to enhance our Medicaid reimbursement rates to physician fee schedules. 33.9 million all funds, 13.6 SGF. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Committee, other recommendations? Representative Will Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would make a recommendation to add 45.2 million, including 17.9 million SGF to raise outpatient hospital rates by 30%.
Representative, may I have the numbers again, please?
45.2 at all funds, 17.9 SGF to raise them by 30%.
Raise certain codes by Medicaid?
All Medicaid codes.
All Medicaid codes. Okay, we have a second by Representative Ballard. By 30%. Okay, a motion by Will Carpenter, 45.2 million all funds, 17.9 state general funds, all Medicaid codes by 30%. We have a second by Representative Ballard. Representative Rees. Oh, we already have a second. I thought you were discussing. Representative Clifford.
Yes, it may sound a little contrarian, but I'm not going to vote on this. I do own a facility that that business is reimbursed consistent with hospital outpatient rates, and I choose not to vote on this.
Very well.
We'll record as absent or not absent.
Abstain.
I'm here, present.
We can record a recusal, yes, okay. All right, committee discussion on the motion. Representative Barth.
Thank you, Chairman. My question would be for you, Representative, would this cover critical care access, hospitals, emergency, you know, full hospitals, rural hospitals across all 105 counties for the state?
Representative Will Carpenter.
It does. This is for all hospitals. And committee, just as a discussion, in the summertime, I thought, you know, in lieu of Medicaid expansion, which I am definitely against because we need to take care of our most vulnerable people before we take on another 150,000 folks that are able-bodied adults. So I thought, how can we do some things? And it would be increasing the Medicaid reimbursement for not only doctors, but hospitals. And this is that coming together. And a lot of people have done a lot of hard work and we've learned a lot. The KDHE folks, the hospital folks, all of us have learned a lot, that this is not just some easy thing that you can brush across and get it done. But this is the accumulation of all that work to help our critical access and our hospitals, all of our hospitals, all of them.
And for fiscal year 25.
25.
Okay. Committee, other discussion on the Carpenter motion? Okay, if I can recap before we vote, your motion is 45.2 million all funds, 17.9 SGF. This is going to raise all outpatient hospital Medicaid codes by 30%, starting fiscal 25.
Correct.
Outpatient, yes. Okay, any other discussion before we vote? Representative Ballard.
You know what I know.
Okay, those in favor of the Carpenter motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Committee, are there any other recommendations? Representative Will Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to address some of other issues, I add $2 million SGF for one-time funding to reimburse hospitals operating as rural emergency hospitals without the designation of such. We have one hospital in our state that is operating with the rural emergency hospitals, but they're not getting compensated because it hasn't finished. It's a federal deal, and we haven't finished the whole process, so they're operating at a loss. There are 2 more hospitals that are, in fact, looking at that model, but this is to reimburse them until they can get through and get the designation and get the funding.
Okay, would you mind going through the details again? 2 million?
2 million SGF. Yeah, for 2025, I'm sorry.
Fiscal year 2025.
Rural emergency hospitals.
Okay, that was second by Representative Ballard. Discussion, committee? Representative Barth.
Thank you, Chairman. Is that a flat 2 million total, or did you say per hospital?
It's just 2 million.
Just flat 2 million?
Yep, just a flat 2 million.
Committee, other discussion? Seeing none. Those in favor of the Will Carpenter amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Committee, are there other recommendations? Representative Will Carpenter.
Committee, I saved the best for last. So, yeah, kind of reverse Medicaid expansion, if you would say. So I would make a recommendation to delete $715 million, including the addition of 61.8 SGF to remove the funding from Medicaid expansion. All the fund deletions include $735.6 million from the federal funds and $41.1 million from special revenue funds.
Okay, we have a motion by Representative Carpenter to eliminate those funds, and a second by Representative Barth. Representative Ballard?
Yes. I'm opposed to that, but I've opposed it for many years because the money is there for Medicaid expansion, and we find other ways to get around it, and I can appreciate that in many ways. But we also know that there's this population in the state of Kansas, and they're not all able-bodied adults. And the majority of people in this state have indicated they would like to have Medicaid expansion. And yet we don't want to do it, and we won't do it, so we take the money out of it, and we're spending more money in many ways in order to support a lot of these people for which I am appreciative, and I know they are as well. But eventually, we're going to have to do Medicaid expansion. I mean, there are 40 states that do Medicaid expansion, and all 40 in many ways are different. They meet the needs of each of their individual states, and they seem to be fine. I don't think 40 states can be totally wrong about Medicaid expansion when there's only 10, and actually there's one on the brink now, which it'll be put us in 9. And we have never been satisfied to be in the lesser category of what we do in many ways. So I could say more, but I'm not going to belabor the point because I know where the votes are. But I did want it known because I have my constituents and constituents all around the state that I don't even know would like to see Medicaid expansion. The governor has indicated Medicaid expansion, and she's responding to the will of the people around the state. So we find ways to get around it, and that's fine. But I'm opposed to it, and I will not vote for this amendment. Even though Will Carpenter is my dear friend, I still will not vote for this amendment. Thank you.
Very well. Representative Ruiz.
I will agree with everything that Representative Ballard said. And all due respect to our representative that I truly, truly respect. The word able-bodied is always thrown out there, and it's part of an ideology that's out there. It's a way to categorize people, but the reality is, if we've already talked about the Community Care Network of Kansas, there are 28 health centers across the state. And we already know that they're spending 56.5 uncompensated millions of dollars of care. And so much of that would be recouped if we would expand Medicaid. And the people that have talked to me about needing Medicaid expansion, that they would meet the criteria for it, are folks who are working 2-3 jobs. There are folks that's what they want to do. They want to work. But for so many other reasons, the kind of jobs that they are getting are those jobs that are all part-time and without benefits. And yes, I know that some people can get insurance through the Affordable Care Act, but why should they have to spend $100 a month for that when they could meet the criteria for Medicaid expansion, and that $100 goes to rent or goes to food or health care? I think it's a travesty that we refuse to look at it and really have a true hearing on it. We're not granted a hearing. We're doing a disservice to our state, and our constituents are very loud and clear about this is what they want. I just wish that we would be a stronger legislators and have a real hearing on this. And I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing us to have this, because this is the only committee that ever allows this. And I want to thank you for that.
You're quite welcome. Representative Blake Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My understanding is that sometime around turnaround or a little after maybe, the Health and Human Services Committee here on the House side is going to have a hearing on Medicaid expansion. So both the proponents and opponents will have their opportunities. I'm not going to belabor the point, Mr. Chairman, and actually I'm going to make a very selfish plug here, but I do a podcast, actually. I don't know if any of you guys have actually listened to it or not, but we talked about the Medicaid expansion issue for about 32 minutes. And so I'm not going to talk here for 32 minutes. I'll spare you all that. But if people wanted to go out and listen to just maybe some of what myself and others, I think, similarly believe, they could go out and listen to that. It's on Google. It's called the Kansas Briefing, and it specifically talks about the Medicaid expansion issue for an extensive amount of time. But thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I wanted to say, and I'm going to support the Vice Chairman. Thank you.
Shameless plug, huh? Representative Clifford.
It's just a point. How is the 92 million savings handled? Probst just takes that out and redoes the numbers, or? That's the question I had.
Yeah, because of the way the budget was crafted, that will have to be an add-in back. So the 30 million would be deducted from the budget, the 92 added back in. So it's a 60 million something adjustment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Representative Barth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know this was going to come to this discussion at this point as well, and from a kind of just a personal belief as well, and I think that this is one of those things, like, to have this open discussion, there's a lot of us that believe that we're overtaxed and that it's not the state's money to spend, it's the persons and individuals that earn the money to spend. And if we all had that, we probably would have more money in all of our pockets to spend on things such as healthcare or however people wanted to spend that money. And we educate ourselves a lot over this time frame too, around this. And what I have found is, I know there's a bunch of other states done it. And actually that's what we've learned, is that, the states have miscalculated by 96%. The calculation, we've had states that, the intention is that this is not going to go to the able-bodied, and then government doesn't usually get things right, and I would rather government not be making decisions for people. But it's obviously, instead, what's happened is, in Maine, it was the folks that were the younger men without children. And, that's a concern. And then you also have states that who've done this too, like I think it was Idaho or Illinois, I forget which one it was, but it was about $1 billion underestimation of what it was truly going to cost the state. And so this is the people's money that we're talking about, and it's really important to me, and I'm going to support, Will Carpenter on that and vote with him as well on this. So thank you.
Committee, other discussion? Seeing none. You've heard the motion from Representative Carpenter. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? No. Okay. 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 Representative Ballard requests a no vote. Representative Ruiz, Representative Hobson, a no vote. Other recommendations, committee? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to pass the budget as amended for fiscal year 24 and 25. Okay. Representative Blake Carpenter moved. Representative Ballard. Okay. I don't think we need to discuss that. So all in favor of passing the fiscal year 24-25 budget for KDHE as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you, committee. We meet again tomorrow, and we'll start the KDAD's budget tomorrow.